Hey everyone, welcome back to another Suzero Success Story. Today, my guest is a remarkably interesting chap who has taken on many different job roles. He's worked as a waiter, a chef, a banker, a fitness instructor, nurse, and is now an entrepreneur. Known as the Heart Guy, he's turned his focus to how we can all harness what he calls our lunatic gene. Welcome to Suzero Success Stories, Adam Shaw. Whoop, whoop. We don't have a live audience. I know you're used to bigger speaking events, mate. So I apologise for the lack of audience.
I know that. Well, that's what social media is all about, isn't it? You get a chance to share it. You never know how big the audience is eventually going to be.
That's it, exactly. So, and how are you? First question off the bat that I've been asking most people that I've done these talks with: how are you finding lockdown? How has it impacted you?
I'm loving it. I know it's almost embarrassing for me to say that. For me, it's given me a chance to really do like a factory reset on my business, and it's given me loads of breakthroughs. Yeah,
Good.
It's been incredible so far.
And how has it impacted the business for you? And actually, maybe we should dive. There are topics that I definitely want to bring up with you and talk about. But do you want to just explain a little bit about what you do and what your business is?
Well, I'm all about people, building communities, and I run a business network that's very alternative, and it's been traditionally all physical events. So the lockdowns really challenged me to look at my business from a different angle.
Yeah. Good. And are you finding that like positioning that and repositioning that as working well? Is it because I mean we were chatting briefly last night, weren't we? And it sounds like some of the online bits that are coming out are even though they're in their infancy stage from a technology point of view, it sounds like they are pretty exciting.
Well, I'm on blank canvas territory now, Sam. Quite transparently, I've got a focus group set up, and I'm definitely coming out the other end of this with a new business and a new man.
Good, that's it. Well, but that's that entrepreneurial mind, because I think, I don't know about you, but being sat at home here, getting on with Suzero bits, and we're moving that forward, etc., etc. But the number of ideas that are coming to my mind, everything from delivering garden, working with garden centres, bits like that. I think once you have that entrepreneurial mind, you just go here, there, and everywhere, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, I know that you. I'm going to say suffer, or your biggest gift is your biggest curse, and our gift and curse is creativity. Coming up with new ideas is the easy zone for me. I mean, that's why coaching others is easy for me. The curse of it when you're a one-man band is keeping that singular focus for long enough to translate that to a business.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an important point. Now, I want to go right back, and we've known each other for a long while, but I want to dive back actually to childhood. And I read somewhere that you grew up and your parents were both psychiatric nurses, and I would love to know if you've had, what kind of impact did that have on you? Growing up, did you look at things in a different way? Has that made any impact to you now?
Well, definitely. I mean, certainly normal for me was patients in their 90s knocking on doors asking for cigarettes.
Wow. Okay.
I'd sometimes look out the window and find somebody squatting on the lawn, caught short on their cigarette gathering mission. So
wow.
This was like normal for me. So coming out in the world and seeing people's quirks, I mean, anything beyond that is like, well, doesn't really faze me. So dealing with people that are slightly left of center, that's normal for me. So it's actually helped. It's made me less judgmental of people, and it's made me a lot more accepting of the quirks of life.
Yeah, and do you think that lended itself, because your nursing wasn't in like a psychiatric field, was it, or was it?
No, one thing I definitely knew, I never wanted to go into psychiatry. I mean, the real lunatic asylum was inside our house because my parents didn't get on at all.
Right.
So for me, the lunatic asylum itself was actually a step in the right direction.
Right, I'm with you. Okay. Yeah.
And hanging out with the real loonies, that was life relief for me.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So that lends itself. So, but and so nursing, because you got involved in nursing. Was that? I mean, on the list of many roles you've had, I just put that right almost at the end there. But was that in between being, chef, banker, et cetera, or was that kind of right at the start? Did you kind of come out of school and know that that's what you wanted to go into?
No, that was almost middle of the road. I mean, I've been out there earning money since the age of 9 years old. I had a paper round. I
Yeah.
worked in a video shop. I caddied for years.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 17, I was
Mm.
I felt like an old soul in the workforce. For me,
You've done it all.
yeah, I really did. So after that, I joined a merchant bank. I was in a restaurant from 16. As soon as I got my national insurance number, and of course it was all my mates from school.
Yeah,
So that was my fun job. I went there for fun. A bunch of 16-year-olds running a restaurant. I mean, you can imagine. Funnily enough, it's not open now.
Really?
It didn't last.
I wonder why.
Yeah, and then I got a break into merchant banking, and I realised that profession, although if I'd stayed there now, I'd probably be well rich, but I saw the employees there, and it was like The Walking Dead. I mean, I see The Walking Dead now, and that was banking. People stuck in their job, in the wage trap. They couldn't afford to leave. Because the money snowballs, and there reaches a point where you can't get another job in any other place. And people had so many financial ties that they were ball and chain to the bank. So I had a ghost of Christmas future moment, decided it wasn't for me. I'd heard my friends had gone to Camp America, working in summer camps. That seemed a lot more fun than a career of banking. So I applied, I got the job. I went back one day, told my family, "Oh, I'm going to America." And they laughed at me, thinking I was joking. And then
you went.
Then one day, about 3 weeks later, the tickets came through and I didn't go to work. And they're like, "Why aren't you going to work?"
I told you I'm going to America. That's brilliant.
So yeah, that all happens by the age of 19.
By the age of 19, sorry, I thought you were talking about a much longer period than that.
No, I'd overlapped. I'd worked from 16 to 18, I was working in the restaurant, and from 17 to 19, I was working in the merchant bank.
Because this is an interesting point. I mean, so at 19 years of age, you had I would say maturity, obviously, but almost the foresight to realize that these people who, I'm sure when you joined the bank, you were looking at it thinking, that role would be amazing, or, everything that they have looks brilliant. You were able to quickly observe that actually there is more to life than that, or you didn't want the life to that. I find that amazing at 19 years of age to recognize that.
That's very kind of you to say so, Sam. I mean, I was just very lucky that the people that I spoke with were in such extreme situations that it made me realize it was like the ghost of Christmas future. Yeah. And even as a 17-year-old working in the bank, it didn't take a rocket scientist or anyone in advanced psychology to work out that this is what happens if you stay here for a long time. And it was people, because I was at the bottom of the ladder, everybody spoke to me. They trusted me because I was no threat to anyone. I knew all of the office politics. I knew the dynamics. I knew the mood and energy of everyone in there. And I knew how bitter and twisted it was. It was a bank. It was a Japanese merchant bank, and the only way that you could get promoted in our department was if somebody left, died, or had a baby.
Wow.
And that was the reality of it. So people were looking at the people above them in the chain and saying, "Well, I hope she gets pregnant soon, or I hope something happens." And when that's your mood or your mentality, I thought, "There's no way."
Yeah.
Absolutely no way I'm selling my soul to the devil. I don't care how much they pay me. I'm out. Yeah. Beat me up, Scotty.
Yeah. No, I think that is super admirable. And I think actually looking at it now, I mean, so during this lockdown, I've been reading loads. I love reading. I read loads anyway. And actually, a couple of weeks back, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, I know a lot of people have different opinions and views on that book, but looking at it and taking a step back and realizing that people just go around in this never-ending cycle and for what, you know. I also read last week a Robin Sharma book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one.
You've heard of it. I haven't read it.
Right. Okay. Very, very good story. And it follows a story of, I won't ruin it, but the whole premise of it, you know, talks about the purpose of life. And, you know, the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. And I think, as I say, to recognize that at 17, you know, between 17 and 19 years of age is staggering. I find that really, really impressive. And I think for some of the younger viewers who may be watching this, it's not a call to go and look at your own situation, but I think it's something that everyone should be aware of, really.
Oh, thanks, Sam. I mean, the only reason I ended up in the bank, it wasn't a job I wanted. It was to please my family. They were all delighted when I got that job, and I just felt the whole energy sink. And I was lucky enough to work in opposite a girl that had been forced into an arranged marriage with someone that she hated. You know, how many of us do stuff for our parents? And I thought, no way. You know, I don't care what they think. You know, I'll take it. I'll fall out with my family, which I pretty much did.
Yeah,
it's you know, it's a brave move as a teenager to go against, you know, everything that your family want. But then when you look at what's to come, the ghost of Christmas future, and you think, you weigh up the things and think, no, I don't care what they think. If they love me, they'll have to get over it.
No,
but they did.
No, I completely agree. And it's funny, I think, I mean, talking on that, you know, you're choosing to go down a path that is completely different and is completely unknown. And I mean, I remember my time at university, and that was the first time that you kind of, I remember, you know, going through university where you've got all of these deadlines and guidelines, and then going into running a business straight away where you create your own guidelines and deadlines and everything. And it was like, no one's going to push you. You've got to really have the drive for that. And it was something completely different. And has shifted my mindset big time. So yeah, I find that whole topic is very, very interesting around, you know, making your own decisions and just observing the situations of other people, be it adults really, especially in that crossover period, because I feel like 17 to 19, you're kind of like, right, I'm not a proper adult, but at the same time, I'm not a kid. You know, I can drive, I can do whatever, I can drink, etc., etc. That's an interesting time of people's lives, I think, to make key decisions.
Well, I was very lucky as well. I mean, I also rolled my car at 17. I was very lucky to live. I drove it. I was speeding. I was racing a motorbike. It was a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah.
And I ended up rolling the car 4 times, hitting a ditch, hitting trees, having the side of the car peeled off. If it had been anyone else in that car, they'd have been dead. There's no question, because the passenger side was crushed down. The car ended up upside down in the woods. The back had been crushed down. The only part of the car that hadn't been crushed was the driver's seat.
Wow.
So, the sun's come out. I shouldn't have sat here.
Yeah, no.
What happens? I had this shining light moment as I was hanging upside down in the car. And feeling very lucky, and not a scratch on me. I mean, if I didn't believe in some sort of guardian angel before, that was the moment that I started to open up to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, we'll come on to that topic, I'm sure. But I want to just carry on the theme as we were. So you went to Camp America. Do you remember? Was that a specific sport you were doing, or was it just like general?
I blagged it, Sam. I went to the interview. Absolutely. I managed to answer each question creatively enough. I'd been there on the Saturday and nobody wanted me because I wasn't qualified.
Okay.
And I went there on the Sunday, and you know, this is again, when you're creative, you think differently to everyone, and that's something that I've always done.
Yeah.
So on the Sunday, you know, the Saturday, the first thing we did was went in for a 2-hour induction. On the Sunday, we went in for the induction. I went down the other way and went into the main hall where all of the camp owners were having their coffee.
Right.
Because I was the only person in there, and I just sat down with these 2 camp owners and started talking to them.
Yeah.
And we were talking about other stuff, and they quite liked me, even though I had no qualifications.
Yeah.
It's almost like they wanted me to get the job by the end of it. And they're like, yeah,
Brilliant.
but you could do this, couldn't you? You could. We don't have any general roles, but we could. You could go in and teach, kayaking, couldn't you? And I was like, no, don't really want to teach kayaking. I don't know anything about kayaking. And in the end, I talked them into creating an extra role for me.
Really?
Because they liked me. It wasn't anything to do with my CV. They liked me because I've always been fairly honest, fairly straight up. Heart on your sleeve type character, and some people, people by people, and it was my first. Well, the bank was the same. I didn't get the job in the bank that I went for. A girl, I had 5 GCSEs, C or above.
Right.
The girl that got the job had 4 A levels, A grade.
Wow.
And the next day, the guy that interviewed phoned me up and said, you didn't get that job, but there's another role come up and I'd really like to get you in there. Wow. So it really taught me in every role, it's not my qualifications that's got me in the door. It's the fact that I can talk to people.
Yeah. And having those, I agree. I mean, having those conversations is so key. And it's almost it's not a case of selling yourself. It's in those conversations and being like, oh, I'm really good because of this, this, and this. It's just allowing a relationship and an immediate level of trust to just be built, isn't it? I think. Reading Richard Branson's book and him talking about listening as a dying skill. And I think how you make people feel makes a massive, massive difference versus actually what you say. Or, like you say, with, academic or qualifications, how you make people feel is a makes a big impact.
Well, 2 things around that, Sam, that spring to mind. Some research I came across was they asked, I think it was about 550 people, would you rather spend time with a good speaker or a good listener? What sort of percentage do you think?
I would have thought maybe I would have said around maybe a 70 to 30 split towards a listener.
Well, that's a really good guess. It's actually 81% towards.
Really?
And another thing that springs to mind is people very rarely remember what you say, but they always remember how you make them feel. Completely
agree. And how have you applied that to your business now? Because I know your business now, and obviously the networking and the events that come on, but they're more than just networking events, aren't they? You're talking about very, very specific high level people in a multitude of different fields coming together and actually making connections in a very different way. Do you want to explain a little bit about that on that theme of making people feel and what they feel is better than what they say?
Well, I suppose as far as I felt, Sam, coming out of the world of nursing, where, I had to do a lot of listening, a lot of counseling, a lot of working with the dying, seeing people real at the end of their lives. And I came into the world of business networking, and it was like Tinder. It's like, what you do is you're like almost the first question before, what's your name? Oh, nice to meet you. No, what do you do?
Yeah.
So it irritated me. And then I thought, well, rather than get irritated, let's just give them what they deserve. If someone's coming in with that, they said, what do you do? And it started off, I was like, oh, I'm homeless. They just asked me to come in and make up the numbers. Or I'm from the London Window Licker Society. And we smudges as we were walking by. So, what do you think? And, my whole thing is, to find out whether that person's got a sense of humor, because if they don't, the odds are that it's not going to go far in a business relationship anyway.
Yeah.
So, I said, I sell solar paneled heads.
What?
And people look at me and they don't know, they don't know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Some people get it instantly and some people don't. And for me, it very clearly indicates who I need to be spending my time with.
Yeah.
If they don't have some sort of sense of humor, then it's probably not going to go well. So
I completely agree. Yeah.
So I think design networking to set it up so that for the first 2/3 of the networking event, nobody gets to talk about their business.
Wow. Okay.
Some people get it straight away. And
Yeah.
a lot of people were just so mind-bogglingly confused that they're at a business networking event, not talking about their business.
Yeah.
Because they haven't clicked that people pay people.
Yeah. I agree. I think that is, yeah. And how is the reception? I mean, you say that some people get it, some people don't. For those who don't get it, do they, once you've kind of explained it, do they then get it? Or do you find that you get people who are coming in and it's like, okay, I want to get X number of business cards, and then I'm going to try and make a connection over email or call or something like that? Do you find that, or is it very much actually no, that we do get that we need to build relationships?
No, it is very much. I mean, some people get converted over. I mean, it's like anything in life, Sam. Everybody's got their own niche, and some people will never get it. Some people don't get it, but can be talked into it. Some people sort of get it and then get it more by the time I finish.
Yeah.
And other people get it straight away.
Yeah.
I've stopped worrying about all of the other categories. It's the people that get it straight away that are generally right for the network. So, I focus on people rather than what their business does. Yeah. And if there are two businesses that are the same, well, to have a chat, work together, share information. You've both got different niches. You don't have to threaten each other. You're not necessarily rival. Yeah. Good people will find ways to work together. And that's really what I found.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny you say that, because the first thing that springs to mind is, I mean, during like filming some of these Suzero success stories, talking to various other people, and I keep getting comments about, oh, why are you filming? Why are you talking to other people who have food brands? Or even, another, we've got a video coming out, with another snack bar brand. And the founder of that business shares and she's very, very, very smart. She shares my understanding of the fact that, we're not here to compete. We're here to create. There is enough of a market for everyone, if you want to look at it in that sense. And actually, by building relationships, we show our customers that we actually do care about the people that are buying the products. And building that personal relationship and just coming away from the art of competing, because I've been to the networking events and it's, or I'm in food as well, or I'm doing this, or I know this person. People are hesitant to. You think, well, what's wrong with that? Ultimately, we're both going to gain something by making a genuine connection, surely.
Absolutely. I think you've got exactly the right way. And it's exactly the same for me, Sam. When I came out of nursing, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a wellbeing consultant.
Yeah.
I had my lucky break by completely losing the plot one day.
Right.
I was giving a talk at a multi-level marketing meeting on wellbeing. No one was listening after my introduction. So I told them I was going to change their lives with a groundbreaking technique. And I bigged it up for about 2 minutes, and I had the undivided attention of the whole room. And I said, right, now I'm going to show you what it is. And I got them out. I said, if you're in that conversation where you feel your energy is about to dip because somebody's talking and talking and talking and talking,
yeah.
Now's when you do it. And they're all hanging on my every word, waiting for this groundbreaking thing. And I said, this is what you do. And I had them all clucking like chickens. I said, you cluck like a chicken. The conversation's over. You don't have to listen to it. It works every single time. And they started laughing. I had 2 people up demoing it. I got the whole room to stand up and cluck like a chicken. And it turned out in the audience, I was in South London that day. There was a guy from St Albans, just a couple of, that's where I lived at the time. He lived a few hundred yards down the road from me. He said, that was brilliant. You must come round. Turned out he was sharing an office with a guy I already knew, one of my
Really?
So I went to see him in his office. At that time, I was a consultant. I had one client. I didn't have any money, and I pretty much, I tried to position myself in the ways that all these coaches had told me to, a complete stripping out me from the whole equation. And that was the first time I thought, no, I'm going to do it my way now.
Yeah.
And a guy came up the stairs to pick up a camera that this guy had got him, and he made the cardinal mistake. The first question was, he's like, well, what do you do? I said, I make people cluck like chickens. He went, how does that work? I showed him this 2-minute video that I'd recorded from that session. And, then he started laughing. He said, I like you. Let's go to the pub. Now, bear in mind, I was a wellbeing consultant. And we went down the pub, got absolutely smashed. got absolutely hammered. Me telling him I was a wellbeing consultant. I went back. I woke up the next day feeling like death itself. He phoned me up and said, I'm coming into St Albans. Do you want to meet up?
Yeah.
And I said, I do have to meet up with my client. I had one client, and it was booked in for that exact time.
Right.
I said, "Oh, I can't actually do it."
Yeah.
And so, and then the client phoned me up and says, I can't make today's session. And I thought, oh, that's handy. So I phoned him back up, said, you still up for it? I went up for coffee, and I said to him, I was at my wit's end. I knew I had no business brain, and he was an entrepreneur investor wanting to have coffee with me. I said, I really think that me and you could work together. And he said, well, how much do you need?
Wow.
Went, what? And I was still processing the question. He said, is 10 grand enough? And I went, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have an executive summary. I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any clients. I mean, it was the worst pitch ever. It really was. What did you get funded with? A chicken video. That was it. And a session on the beer. It's a true story. And I ended up with a business mentor. And one day I went from no clients or anything. It turned out that this guy's dad was a lord. So I went from having absolutely nothing to a year later, I was sitting in the House of Lords having tea and scones with Glenys Kinnock, a lord, with Karen Brady on the table one side and William Hague and Angelina Jolie on the other. And I was looking around pinching myself thinking, I don't know how this happened.
Yeah, how have I got here?
how did that happen? But it did.
Wow. And that just shows the power of just one, being yourself, two, connecting with people, and three, just, dare I say this ability to be like, I'll give it a go, and rather than actually, I don't have a clue. And as you alluded to, not having a business plan, not having any idea of what you're gonna, how you're gonna move and position this stuff, to then be like, yeah, I'll do it, and then just go straight into it. Because I think, especially right now, we're seeing a huge change in the market, and people need to really, when there are opportunities there, just jump on them, but recognize that because of social distancing, because of lockdown, that social connection is just going to be built in a different way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about people. It always has been about people. And one thing that I've realized that I got quite good at working with people at the end of their lives, and really working out what was important and what wasn't. I've had so many of those conversations that it made me realize that you've got to get out and live your life while you're young.
Yeah.
That's why I did the Camp America thing. I had my parents saying, you've got to do this, get a house, get a job, get a wife. I was like, no, I don't want any of that. I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
And, I'd get all these mentors that I was looking after in a elderly care ward. They would say, oh, go for it, son. I wish if I could go back and be your age, that's what I would do.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It was so liberating getting all of these people with so much life experience telling me, do it, just go out and do it. Best mentoring I ever had.
That is perfect mentoring, really, I think. And as you say, that has got to be the best mentoring. And one of the questions I was going to ask was, have you had any mentors? But it sounds like, you've had the same very, very good, very, very keen advice from a multitude of different people at a critical point in their lives.
Well, it's funny you should ask that, Sam. The first mentors I had were the patients in the psychiatric ward.
Wow. Okay.
Because, growing up within the grounds of a psychiatric hospital, especially in the 70s and 80s, it was a lot more brutal. Political correctness did not exist.
Yeah, I can imagine.
When I grew up. So, you can imagine how brutal kids were at school. It's like, it's a lunatic on day release. And actually, there were some real psychos in our school, and luckily they stayed away from me because they weren't sure.
Really? Wow.
They weren't sure whether I really was a lunatic or not. So it did me a favor, the labels that people were putting on me at school. One of the guys that I went to school with once frisbeed a plate across the sixth form room and split my head open. I had to go and get stitches, and he's now doing time for distributing parts of a body in 3 different counties.
Oh,
It's a true story. You know,
seriously.
my school was a school of life. It was a, you know,
Mm,
it taught me some real, you know, heavy duty life skills. And my
mm,
mentors were psychiatric patients. I couldn't really talk to my parents. They were always fighting and I couldn't get much sense out of them. The
mm.
only people I found that would actually listen to me were the patients.
Yeah.
And it's incredible what wisdom come out of people in the psychiatric hospital,
Mm,
because at least they know which side of the psychiatric divide they're supposed to be on. And with that, for a lot of them comes this liberation of you know, freedom of not trying to wear a mask or be someone else.
yeah.
You know, they're free to just observe and
Yeah.
a little bit like it's a little bit like the character that James Buscemi plays in Con Air. You know, he's the biggest lunatic of the lot, and yet these little snippets of wisdom came
Yeah.
out, you know, about what real lunacy is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of truth. There's a
That's
lot of truth
crazy.
out of
Yeah.
the mouths of lunatics.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point to transition onto then. And this, you're the lunatic gene. Explain this to me and explain how you not develop this, the concept or the term, but how did you come to, the realization that there is this lunatic gene, and explain a little bit about it.
If you want the truth, my original book script was on heart health. And when I'd written it, I told all my friends, I've written this book on heart health. And they're like, yeah, all right, Adam, what are you doing at the weekend? God, even my mates aren't interested.
Right.
And I ditched it. I ditched the script. I did nothing with it. And I was at a book launch about 3 years later. And there was a journalist with me. Oh, I've just written a book. It's like, if you ever written a book, and, there's a lot to be said for that moment of, I call it the fuck it moment, when you've tried positioning yourself the way that every expert tells you.
Yeah.
And then the only thing left at the end of it is to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I was in this book launch, and the journalist said, well, what did you write about? And the first thing that popped into my head, I said, the lunatic gene. And she just lit up. And it's the first time I'd ever talked about my book and somebody had been interested in it.
Yeah.
Not even my parents were interested that I'd written a script.
Wow.
Nobody seemed to give a shit. So I just ditched it.
Yeah.
And I told this journalist that had just written her own book. She's like, that's such a great idea. I think I have that gene.
Really?
And the more people I spoke about the lunatic gene, the more people were like, wow, nobody ever asked me, does it really exist?
Yeah.
And what is the lunatic? It made me actually think, what is it? And the lunatic gene is, it's a part of us where we think we have to be someone else, especially in business. It's when, the coach, you can't say this, you can't do that, you should do this, you're positioning that, you've got to niche. And, somewhere down the line, I just felt empty. I felt I was doing videos and it just wasn't me anymore. I've actually kept some of my old videos up on my YouTube channel just to remind me, how crap that process was.
Right.
And what they were doing was pretty much stripping all the essence out of me to position me in the way that they thought I should position my business. And my whole life has been doing things differently. And when I've just ditched all of this great mentoring advice and just thought, no, fuck it, I'm just going to be me. And if that works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But at least I can go out saying, well, at least I gave it, I showed up.
I agree.
And the lunatic gene for me, if I was to translate it now, is when people think they have to be someone else. It's the masks we wear in the different areas of our life. Because what I've found is most people show up with a different persona in business. Then they go home and they're themselves.
Yeah.
And then they have to show up, or then they might cross over, or then they might get caught with the camera. Oh no.
Yeah. How does it then? Yeah.
If you're yourself all the time, you don't have to worry about, being caught.
Yeah. That's a very interesting. I mean, I'm thinking about it now to myself because I remember friends and family watching the first few YouTube videos we did on the Suzero channel and thinking, where have you got this energy from? Like, we've never seen this kind of passion for it. That, they've seen a different side of the passion. Obviously, when, as running a business, you come home and all you think about is the negatives, and you sit there and you're like, oh, that didn't work. This didn't work. This didn't work. Or I need to do this. And I think that changes you, and you do end up going into two different places or two different personas. So that's very interesting. And I have to ask, have you finished the book? Is the book, you know, to be published? What kind of stage is that at?
Well, that's an interesting question you should ask that now, Sam, because
Yeah.
my friend Bobby is a brilliant guy. He kicked my ass hard enough and says, get it out there, self-publish it.
Yeah.
I put it out, I self-published it. He had to drag me through a few hedges to, motivate me to get it done. And then when it got self-published, I had another friend who was going around and he was asking, he was trying to get his own book published.
Right.
And he said he got a really good rapport with one of the publishers, but they didn't do fiction, and his was a fiction novel. He said, well, I know one of my friends, they do a non-fiction, and he asked me to send over a copy of my script. I sent it over. They gave me a publishing contract. So I'm now at the stage, I've got to take down the Lunatic Gene, the self-published version. So it doesn't actually exists now, and they're going to do what they're going to do with it. And they wanted to change the name, and you know what, if they do, they do. I'm just going to let them get on with it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's out of my hands.
Wow, that's quite an exciting process, though, and it's something that I'd love to do. I've had many many thoughts about writing down thoughts on in a book form, and I think I admire anyone who can go through that journey and that process, especially from a creative standpoint, because as you say, you're connecting people to people, and you're really putting something out there that you believe in, and actually, when you believe in it, it doesn't matter whether people think it's right or wrong, because you believe in it and you understand it to its essence and its core, and that shifts a little bit of the expectation, I think, of what with a book, especially going out and saying, well, I know I've published the best thing I possibly can on this topic or on my thoughts. It doesn't really matter what kind of commercial success it gets, especially a book around, people and being authentic.
That's really that's kind of you to say so, Sam. It really is. I mean, the best results come when you stop worrying about what other people think. And that was my biggest. It was my biggest enemy on the entrepreneurial journey. Definitely.
Yeah. I have to ask: have you ever read The Master Key System by Charles Manel? Okay. Very interesting book. I will when we're able to meet up, I will lend you my copy of it, because there's a very, very key chapter on that, and I found it very, very helpful for my own entrepreneurial journey. But I'm conscious of time, and I know we could chat for hours and hours and hours, but what I'm going to do is hit you with the final 3 questions, if you don't mind, that we actually, no, before that, I'm going to ask the key, or is it part of the 3? No, I think it is the final and 3rd question. Now I come to think of it. So this is bad. I'm not prepared enough.
Which is probably, that's the way that my life has gone, so it's happened for a reason.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So my first question for you, right? And I'm going to come out straight away and say this. What has been your biggest failure?
My biggest failure, well, is myself, really. Wow. I know that my motivation sometimes is just, one thing about working in a critical care setting is, I have an off switch, and when I flick it, that's it. I can switch off.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a survival mechanism when you're working in A&E, when you're witnessing death all the time, which means I don't need to process the emotion. I got the ability to just go off.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant when you're in crisis situations and you need to keep a cool head.
Yeah.
It's an absolute disaster in relationships.
Okay. Yeah, I can kind of see why.
So, they say in personal development, your biggest gift is your biggest curse. And that's very, very true. So, when most people would panic, and you have to reach a certain level of panic to take action. Yeah. I can switch off. And so, it's a gift and a curse.
Wow, interesting. Okay, I was not expecting that one bit, but okay, that was a brilliant answer. The second question is, what has been your biggest success?
My biggest success, well, thinking of it on this interview, is probably getting out of banking, because that's,
Mm,
everything in life was a juncture. We hit these paths,
yeah,
and you hit that point, and it happens for everyone, because I coach
yeah,
people through this, when they go through a life crisis. It's always a juncture in their life. Should I marry that person? Should I not? Should I
yeah,
take that job? Should I not? And it's like a sliding door moment.
yeah,
It's these moments in time that completely change the course of your life.
yeah,
And that was the biggest, because I was young, I was a teenager, and my
yeah,
parents had a lot of influence over me.
mm,
It wasn't just my parents, it was my whole family.
yeah,
Were delighted when I went into banking.
yeah,
When I look back at it now, I think, the fact that I was that strong to make a decision at 19
mm,
that went in the complete opposite direction,
mm,
everything that my family had attempted to guide me towards.
yeah,
I'm just so lucky that I was strong enough to make that, because I'd probably be dead now.
yeah,
I'd have probably topped myself if I'd ended up in the bank,
yeah,
because I
yeah.
can't imagine a prison sentence would almost be preferable.
Being in that space. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't expand on these questions, but I think this is important. On that, so on that topic, did you when when you made that decision, did you make that decision off the back of thinking, and you say, you had that flash moment, Christmas future, you saw what was going to happen. Did that come from a place of like deep self-awareness and really knowing yourself, or did that come from almost like a revolt and almost like a rebellion against those who may have pushed you in that direction? Do you see what I mean in terms of the difference between those two things? I know that's quite a complex question.
That's a good question, Sam. And to answer it honestly, both.
Right.
This wasn't just one or the other. This was a package deal.
Yeah.
This was a perfect storm. I could see, it was like sitting on a boat in a calm sea and seeing
Yeah.
the tidal wave coming towards you.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can see it coming. And
Mm,
luckily, I saw it at such a distance, I was able to get out of the way of it.
yeah.
Some people will look, oh, that looks interesting. Oh, we know something's wrong, but we'll keep sailing. Oh, shit, it's getting bigger. Oh,
Now.
maybe we should have taken another button. No, I was able to identify it very early and see very clearly what was
Mm,
coming in the future if I kept down that certain route.
yeah.
And, all I needed to do was spend time every day with people that had done that and
Yeah.
see how they were. Their energy was toxic.
Yeah, yeah.
It
No,
was
well, look, I appreciate the honesty in that answer. I think that's key, and I think those people who are watching, and need to really heed that advice and actually just make sure they not only are self-aware and maybe on that journey of understanding who they are on a deeper level and knowing oneself, but also looking around them and seeing who is pushing them, whether that be a person or whether that be as you already alluded to, by talking about the other bankers who were there, those financial strains that you have that ultimately in the grand scheme of things mean nothing, absolutely nothing. So that's a very, very interesting topic that we're gonna have to do another video on that alone, right, third and final question, and that is, what is one piece of wisdom that you would like everyone to know?
Well, the first thing that popped into my head is be yourself.
Love it.
Everyone else is taken. And if you're trying to
Love it.
position yourself because someone else has told you, you have to do that, you need to do that. Now, there's certain things you need to do, but being someone else is definitely not one of them.
Love that. That is, I think that's probably one of the best or the best advice we've had on that question since starting this series. So, Adam, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Where can people go and find more of your videos and hopefully, fingers crossed, a future book?
Well, if you type in Adam Shaw, the heart guy, I'm almost certain to come up on the search. You type in Adam Shaw, then you'll get all sorts of other Adam Shaw. Luckily, I found the brand the heart guy, which with that detailed line, you can. I usually manage to make it somewhere close to the top.
Yeah, I did. I think you are. If you bang in, Adam Shaw, the heart guy, you will definitely come up. So, Adam, look, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. It's been great to chat, and I know we could go on and talk about many different topics in depth for probably the rest of the day, or as long as I'm allowed to use Zoom for. So,
well, the first of many, Sam. I'm sure we'll have a catch up when we next get a face to face. But really,
we will indeed.
It's been good fun.
Good stuff. Well, we will indeed. And look, everyone watching this video, I thank you very much for watching it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you go out and check out Adam's website and give him a Google, because some of the stuff we've spoken about today, we can go into hours and hours and hours of depth, and I think that it is super relevant for people, especially during this lockdown period now. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and all those things that I'm told to say, and yeah, we will see you again very soon. Thank you very much.